Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Just had some time today doing a live chat. And if there's an internet delay on my end, it's because of the bad rain today. We have some rain and some windy weather where I am. So, just letting everybody know. Gonna share this in the community post. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. It's been pretty good where I am so far. I mean, I've been not dealing with any snow whatsoever. This has been one of the easiest winters ever. Hey, an easier winter's a happier me. I can't stand winter with a passion. I don't know what it is. It just kills my mood. It's gray, it's gloomy. I wish there was a way to skip winter. Everybody's got their least favorite winter or their favorite season, and winter happens to be mine. But I love summer. Summer and spring are the best two seasons. Fall is pushing it. But when winter gets here and the snow and the heating bills and isolation and the lack of vitamin D from the sun, it just kills me. And if only a few people show up, that's fine. I mean, I'm not really looking for a lot of people to come pouring in here. Got some comments here. Good evening, Guy. How you doing, Alfredo? Happy New Year's. And Dynamite was 7 out of 10. Summer always will be the best season. I agree with that. I think summer is great because of the energy that I get from the sun. And I like seeing the blue sky and the sun shine out and it's just right out. Like it just makes me at peace. But when I have this crappy winter weather, it just is so irritating because it's the gray, gloomy weather, but it's also how it gets dark at like 4 in the evening time. And I hate that. You don't even get like a lot of time to actually enjoy it. It's just like you wake up, the sun's coming up at like 7, 8 o'clock, and you only get like maybe what, 4 or 5 hours of actual sun, and then it ends up going right back down. I'm good. And baseball season in the summer, yeah, it's pretty good. Another thing about summer I like is the traveling. I like getting out. And overall, I mean, the last week here in the city has been pretty good, but I kid you not, the weather has been kind of backwards. Like 1 minute it's rainy and then it's not going to snow. And you think around Christmas time there would have been snow on the ground and there's nothing out there. It's just spring weather. People were wearing t-shirts and wearing shorts in December. If you can figure that one out, that's mind-boggling in itself. I didn't even really even need to wear a winter coat this week. I could just walk out the door and I could see people outside enjoying it like it was springtime. So, has a lot of allegations back then as a trainer. I did hear a little bit about Bill DeMott's troubled past. They did say that he was a bit stiff on people, similar to what Bob Holly got when he got in the ring, and everybody says that he beat up Matt Capitelli. And it's just because Bob Holly was really a no nonsense guy, and he took personal offense because Matt Capitelli and others on Tough Enough were treating WWE like it was a joke and it was fun. And he took personal offense to that, which I agree. He had every right to be, but some people are going to say, like, did Bob Holly go that far and like assault Matt Capitelli? You know what I mean? I didn't see the Tough Enough episode where it happened, but I know that Bob Holly got reprimanded for that and he got accused of going way too far. Yeah, that ain't happening. Put user in timeout. I'm just going to ban him. So I'm just going to be doing the live chat here, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, in terms of the bullying, like no one should have to go through that, especially in a company that got contradicted a long time ago for their bullying stance, and then they allowed bullying to continue like it was nothing more than a marketing scheme by WWE to kind of come off as this caring company when in reality they were letting all this stuff happen continuously. You know what I mean? And again, like as much as I hate JBL with a passion, I do know that there's other sides, other bullying and stuff that went on from other talents. Like you go back to the 90s of when the Click, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Sean Waltman, and Triple H, you're going to hear some really alarming stories of what went on in the locker room, like all the people that got basically messed with. I don't know if you remember Brian Clark, who played Adam Bomb. Well, he had revealed in a story like he got to the point where he was going to beat up Scott Hall and Sean Waltman because he threatened both of them and said he was tired of their bullshit, you know? But it went on for a while. I mean, you look about like a lot of the pushes that got sabotaged. I think Kevin Nash had even said at one point that they were telling Vince McMahon what to do, but those guys, they were running rug shot over everybody, you know? But I mean, like, it's common where bullying is common, like everywhere. I mean, it's not just JBL, but the reason why I think that JBL gets kind of ridiculed more is because the guy seemed to enjoy it because he was a heel, even though he was doing it beforehand. But, you know, he got into a lot of altercations. And I think the best one I ever heard about was when he was messing with Steve Blackman, and Blackman just practically did finally hand him his ass one day, and he made Bradshaw apologize to him in front of catering. I don't know if you know that story. How's it going, Toron? Toron Brown? Sorry if I can't pronounce your name. But any story like where you hear JBL gets put in this place is just a fantastic story. Go listen to the shoot interview that Al Snow had done about the whole fight between Blackman and Bradshaw. That's the best story I have ever heard where a bully gets put in their place. It's just one of the best stories, and you're going to want to hear it more than once. It's such a great story. He was, but the thing is, was he a bully because he was a heel, or was he a bully because he couldn't stop being the heel that he was on camera, off camera? That's kind of the big question, because they do in fact have cases to where people can potentially be their personas outside the ring and have a difficult time with distinguishing between real and fantasy. You know what I mean? Like there's people in Hollywood that do that. They believe that what they do in the movies is actually what they are in real life and stuff like that. They've got fans that think this stuff is all real, and it just sometimes there are those cases of people that do that kind of thing. Not to my knowledge, he didn't. I think that Bradshaw only went after people like the younger talents. He went after Joey Styles. He went after John Morrison. He went after God knows who else. I know he bullied the Hardy Boys. I know he bullied just a lot of people. And, you know, again, like he was never fully reprimanded. The Blue Meanie incident is where I talked about the other day. I'm no fan of the Blue Meanie, but I felt bad for him at what he went through at ECW One Night Stand when JBL assaulted the guy and committed assault and battery on him. That is basically something to where the guy should have been removed from his job and should have been banned from WWE and even other wrestling companies. I know it's extreme, but again, like he broke the code that night. You don't go after your opponents and hold liberties like that. JBL obviously did not get the memo. And when he did that, all he did was take advantage of somebody whose back is turned, and Blue Meanie didn't even know what was going on. You could see it in the video. JBL walked up right behind the Blue Meanie and started throwing shots at the guy, and the guy didn't even know what was going on. Reason they were bullying storyline to newcomers, that in the newcomers wants to straight up and elevate to the top tier. He went after people who he thought was weak. Well, he did, but he also messed with the wrong ones at times too. Like you go back and listen to when he had tried to bully Steve Blackman, and Blackman finally had enough and beat the crap out of him. And Bradshaw got so, into that day to where he messed with the wrong guy. And then like Blackman was threatening to kill him. And then Bradshaw apologized in catering in front of everybody. And I guess after that, they didn't have any more heat. But I mean, like Blackman is someone I would never, ever mess with, along with the levels of Ken Shamrock. Ex Chris Canyon, yep. I'm willing to bet Bradshaw wouldn't have tried to bully a Stone Cold Rock or Kurt Angle. It's hard to say. I mean, I know that he's friends with some of these guys back in the day in the Attitude Era, but I really do. Oh. Nope.
What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. I'm having some internet delays, but I'm getting by.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Well, no, that's cool. Appreciate the open invite to the panel here.
Yeah, I meant to do this yesterday, but the weather was just too crappy out, and my computer was running wicked slow.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to see if we can fix that for you at some point in time. I'm working with some pretty cool remote software stuff, so maybe we can talk at some point in time, depending on what's going on. But yeah.
No.
So,
what's that?
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, yeah. Sorry, what are we kind of talking about here? I'm kind of just joining late into the discussion.
Oh, we were talking about bullying in WWE and the whole subject of JBL.
He's had quite a bit of stories, and I mean, I don't know necessarily what's fully true and what's not, but I have heard some stories, obviously alleged stories, right? But that he is pretty hard on other newer talent. He's not the most friendly, and he's very arrogant. There's a lot what I heard about JBL.
Yeah. I know he hazed a lot of people. We were talking about the Blue Meanie incident where he had committed assault on the guy at ECW one night stand and how he went too far that day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You can watch him on camera. He comes walking up right behind the Blue Meanie, and it's believed he was drunk at the pay-per-view, and he starts throwing these real-life shots at Blue Meanie, and he opened them up pretty badly to where we're thinking that, should he have been released from his job that night?
Well, and I mean, he always had kind of a close-knit relationship with, wasn't it Vince, though? Like, isn't that kind of why he was allowed to get away with a lot? Plus, when he was with, again, my wrestling lore isn't as great as what it used to be, but when he was teamed with, when he was in that tag team faction.
Yeah, Farouk,
yeah. I mean, I think when he was working with Farouk, and then it was, what was the tag team name again? What were they called?
They were originally called the Acolytes, but then they became the APA.
Yeah, the APA. So, I mean, because he was more, I think, pretty more blunt, kind of like what his character normally is, or probably what he's like outside of WWE television. I think when he was in the APA, and I think Vince kind of had played favoritism with him, and then plus he was teamed with Farouk. I think he got away with a lot, and then that's how he built his credibility towards Vince. And back then, Vince was the be-all, end-all, controlled everything. You could have basically committed murder, and if you were on Vince's good side, he would have let you got away with anything, right? So I think that's why JBL was probably allowed to do a lot of things that other talents were not, and why he was given a longer leash for committing things like that. At least that's just kind of what I gather. But
yeah, I know he tried to bully Steve Blackman, and Blackman beat the crap out of him one time.
Like that's for real? That's an actual thing?
Yep. If you look on YouTube and type in like Steve Blackman, JBL, and it's a story that Al Snow had talked about, and he was ribbing Blackman so much, and Blackman got into a fight with him at the airport, and Blackman had really just beat the crap out of him, and then he made JBL apologize to him in front of catering because he was threatening to kill the guy.
Well, I mean, and that's good. Again, I know there's a lot of fucking shenanigans. Like another perfect example would even be, not that we're maybe to drift too much off topic from JBL, but even Randy Orton. Like how much controversies was there of Randy Orton? Wasn't it allegedly he he would like touch his crotch or something and physically allow the person that he's talking to, like newcomers, new talents, to see it, and then go to shake their hand. And if you didn't shake Randy Orton's hand after he was touching his junk, then he would basically flame you and get pissed off at you. I don't know if you heard that story before.
No, I did hear that he works stiff on younger talents, though.
Yeah, well, and I've heard that too. But yeah, I'm sure if you even type it in Google, that yeah, there was this thing where Randy Orton, that was one of the allegations, that he would touch his junk, and you would want to shake your hand, and if you didn't do it, then he would basically talk shit to you or about you to Vince.
Yeah, I think that's something I could see him doing. I know he had a problem with Ken Kennedy, and he got Ken Kennedy fired.
Yeah, I heard that too. Well, and as far as Kennedy too, like he had what was supposed to be a pretty good career, like leading up to, he won Money in the Bank, and then everything kind of went downhill, right?
Yep. And John Cena was one of the ones that actually snitched on him as well, from what I've heard.
What's your opinion, like, as far as outside of the wrestling business? What's your opinion? Like, do you think John Cena's a genuine guy?
That's a difficult one to say. I mean, I think that he's had a lot of success, but also he's going to always have his share of haters that are just never going to see the good side of him, and they're going to call it out and say it's all an act. I don't think he was that great of a wrestler, but I do think he had devotion to the business.
For sure. No, and that's fair. I think, and again, this is only my opinion, I see John Cena as a little bit of a, like his Make-A-Wish and everything, that's all fantastic. But the way that I see, because there's been, and it's very rare that you'll see some of, like, say, outside of WWE camera stuff. Like when we're talking about the subjects of, like, say, JBL and what he's like as a person, or Randy Orton, maybe kind of the shady tactics or shady behaviors he's done in the past. For Cena, there's been some post interviews or things like that people have tried to do, maybe not even interviews, but say somebody just with a camera that comes up to him. He's not like at a restaurant, he's not with family or friends. It's not like he's doing something that he just doesn't want to be bothered. Even if somebody sees him in an elevator, they go to say hi to him, and he's kind of arrogant and very cocky, and not so much when he has nothing to gain from it, such as like Make-A-Wish. He's got a face to put to the Make-A-Wish. He's got, something to gain from it, where he gets positive publicity. But when it's just random Joe Schmo that happens to record him just to say hello, he hasn't been very friendly and very, the character and the genuine person that he tries to portray, the hustle, loyalty, respect moniker and gimmick, he doesn't do that typically in situations, from what I've seen for proof. He doesn't do that when he has nothing personally to gain, as in like positive publicity or positive reputation. I don't know necessarily if you've delved into that or had any experiences with seeing that yourself, but that's one thing I've managed to pick up from John Cena in any case.
Yeah, that's the same similar thing that Ryback had said when John Cena used to bully Alex Riley and heckled him backstage, and he got Alex Riley so pissed off one day that apparently he was behind getting Alex Riley released from WWE years ago.
That was John Cena, you said?
Yeah.
Well, and Alex Riley, I mean, again, I don't really know too much terribly about what his outside personality or how he portrayed himself outside of WWE or wrestling television, but I thought Alex Riley was a rising star, right?
Yeah.
Working with The Miz, and that was kind of going on. So yeah, I mean, there's been a few cases where it seems John Cena has kind of, in my opinion, overstepped his boundaries and treated some up and coming newer talent not the kindest, which is kind of contradictory towards his whole hustle, loyalty, respect, when he's not. I don't know. I just sense that he doesn't really respect, and he's got his own demons that he's not really taking personal accountability for, and potentially his success has gone to his head a little bit.
Well, I know he's been accused of cheating. I think that he had a hand in getting Mickie James fired the first time because they had a romance behind the scenes, and she wanted a relationship with him, and he said no, and then she got moved to SmackDown, and then she was released a short time later.
Yeah. Well, and I know Mickie James, especially her most recent release and issues with the garbage bag stuff. What do they call that? Garbage bag gate? Is that even a thing? Her belongings were packed up in garbage bag. Like, that was rude. I think that's terrible how she was treated, because she did give a lot to the business, and again, I'll never forget the feud between her and Trish Stratus back in the golden years. But at the same time, and who knows, these are all alleged, but I heard she maybe gets a little bit clingy with, like, she's maybe more physically friendly with some of the male talent, because John Cena isn't the first man that she was allegedly potentially had a thing for and wanted to form relationships with, or had some kind of physical relations, right? So again, those are alleged. I'm not saying I know for fact, but that's another topic about Mickie James too, is I think she was maybe a little bit too physically friendly with some of the male talent.
Yeah, I think I heard a little bit about that, but I mean, she was involved with someone. Do you remember Kenny Dykstra from the Spirit Squad?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, she was engaged to him when she was also seeing Cena behind his back, and apparently, he found out about the whole thing, but he was actually polite to Cena about it and said he would never badmouth them. And if someone pulled that on me, I wouldn't be saying nice things about them.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, some of the stories and things like that you hear backstage from how people handle. Some people handle things professionally, even though they may have some animosity, like in a situation like that. But yeah, that's pretty unfortunate, that story.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's also believed that Cena went stiff on a lot of the younger guys like he did with Nexus. Did you hear when he broke the arm of Michael Tarver?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was during an angle where Cena blasted him with a chair and he broke Michael Tarver's arm during the Nexus angle. And backstage, when he went to approach Michael Tarver and said, "How's the arm?" and Michael said, "He'll be fine." And then Cena just walked away laughing. It's been on YouTube for a while if you want to go watch that.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I think Tarver, I mean, he wasn't really as well known in the Nexus, but I think that like all of those members, like the Nexus angle had such, uh, like the possibilities were endless, and it's just sad how Cena basically kind of annihilated them. Yeah, really sad how that turned out. But I do believe Tarver was one of the underrated Nexus members, and there could have been more potential had he been given enough time, because he seemed like the kind of guy where, like, I think what Tarver started to, like, before he was just kind of in there and kind of a generic looking wrestler, but then he put on that like black face mask type thing, and he seemed like to kind of maybe change his character up a little bit. So I do believe Tarver, if given enough time, he could have been one of like a more recognizable name in the Nexus faction. But it was, that's unfortunate, kind of what happened in terms of the Cena stuff.
Yeah, it really was sad to see the guy's career end as short as it was. I mean, Nexus had really a lot going at being a dominating group, and then they had CM Punk take over the group, and it was just never the same.
I liked the logo of like CM Punk's Nexus, and I liked the storyline leading up to it. But again, Wade Barrett was definitely, he got shafted. I think he was really, because I mean, when he won, like, what was that, NXT 1.0 or whatever they were calling that at that point, when it was like a reality based show. I think that, and where Wade Barrett is now, obviously being a commentator, is awesome. And then when he was doing the Bad News Barrett stuff, but my favorite gimmick of Wade Barrett was in the Nexus, and he was, after a couple of months, like, he was starting to get more comfortable in front of the camera. He was starting to be more believable as the Nexus leader. And then when they started to do that, the stable was kind of turning on Wade Barrett. That's when things kind of went downhill. And maybe it's a bad comparison on my behalf, and I apologize to your viewers if this maybe is a bad comparison, but I'm getting that kind of that feeling with the like with Imperium, where they're kind of teasing this angle where Imperium potentially is going to break up, and they have this kind of animosity, this internal struggle. I'm kind of getting a little bit of the vibes that it reminds me of what happened with Wade Barrett and the Nexus, just like they're doing with Gunther and obviously his cohorts, which again, I'm hoping this is just to add a little bit of depth and they aren't going to break them up. But it's really unfortunate. The Nexus had such prosperity and possibilities that they definitely got shafted and were fed to Super Cena.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing with WWE, but they were only showing like the good stuff that Cena did. But it's like the Make-A-Wish thing that you mentioned, that there were other wrestlers that visited these kids, in the words of Conan, but they never actually showed it. They only showed what Cena had done, and it was kind of a biased agenda.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. 100%.
Same thing with the Make-A-Wish thing really was just their way of kind of throwing Cena at us a lot more. And the same thing with the tribute to the troop shows. Like they had John Cena going out there dressed as a Marine because one of his breakout movies was called The Marine, and it was basically seen as nothing more than a shrine to himself.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Make the Wish, and I think this is maybe an example of where other talents could have had their maybe made a positive impact on Make-A-Wish. Is Mustafa Ali obviously was recently released in this most recent case of budget cuts, right? You remember when he had it was basically, he was supposed to be that anonymous member of they were doing promos where he was like some kind of anonymous hacker. Do you remember that storyline in WWE? It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, so then they were doing that, which was revealed eventually to be Mustafa Ali. They dropped the story with that. But even, I think, around that same time, then Mustafa Ali was kind of doing it was with one of his hands. He had that like glow up light, circular light thing, and he would always raise his hand, and you see that kind of like glowy, like whatever multicolored light. And then he was wearing a mask. Then he would eventually come out wearing like a glow mask thing. And I think that was a really hot seller. It was kind of like Rey Mysterio's mask. Or the Fiend's, Fiend mask and a lot of Fiend merchandise. That was Mustafa Ali was really making a lot of headway when it came to merchandise sales. And then he ended up donating one of the masks that he wore for, and you can find this on either YouTube or Google, whatever. There was, I think it was a younger girl that was sick, and he ended up, or at least somehow, I don't remember the exactly like verbatim how the story went out. I don't know if she reached out to Mustafa Ali or however, but he ended up doing a video and then donating or giving this mask to this sicker girl, basically. And that was really cool because that was a really hot merchandise seller for him. And to give something like that, like an actual item, it wasn't just like a copy, like what you would buy off a WWE shop. It was actually one that he wore to the ring, like an actual piece of his own memorabilia. And he gave that to a kid or whatever. And a lot of people were looking up at him and thought that was really cool. I think he could have at that point been, at least a decent contributor, to say the least, to the Make-A-Wish. So it's stories like that are really cool, but also showing that other talents can, not for any selfish reasons, can make an impact and just ultimately for somebody that's sick or not feeling well, have a positive impact on their lives.
Yeah, that's kind of reminiscent of WCW when Goldberg was visiting all these kids with cancer, and then the idea of him being a heel came up, which he tried to do. But then they put him in the ring with a cancer survivor, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and that just crushed Goldberg's heel run instantly. And they convert him back to a babyface. But it's that personal moral thing that Goldberg had versus the business of WCW. And of course, Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff were pushing the heel turn. And, that's always been the dissension between the two sides. But it's an example of that with just the agenda. I mean, it's separate from the Mustafa Ali thing, but it's just what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. I hear where you're coming from, and that's a valid point for sure.
Which Bill Goldberg had a right to be mad and everything, but I mean, I always found it shady why they would put him in the ring with a cancer survivor if WCW wanted him to be a role model for kids with cancer. It's like a contradicting message right there.
It was, I think, and I'm not supporting by any means doing that, like what the storyline or whatever they were trying to book with that. But I think there was the edgier type of stories or content back then in WCW days was more allowed, I guess, than say what you'll see now. Like the world we live in today, not saying that like there's obviously boundaries you should never cross, but I think you have to be particularly more careful nowadays in things that you would do. Like that story would never even be suggested, let alone fly in today's wrestling product or even just in mainstream media. So WCW, I think, really tried to base themselves on extremely edgy, not just TV 14 or whatever, but more edgier, because they were trying to separate themselves and one up WWE at that time, right? So they had some stories and things like that were pretty sick. The example you just gave being a prime example of that. But yeah, WCW maybe relied more on being edgy as opposed to thinking logically on maybe the stupidity of some of those ideas.
Yeah, that's what Eric Bischoff was talking about one time when he was talking about how Vince Russo made it so edgy and he was bringing in WWE like thinking for storylines, and it just didn't work with a wrestling company that WCW was, and that's what kind of drove the fan base away faster.
Well, 100%. And then there was a lot of greed, and I think people's own selfishness, the higher ups kind of was their downfall, which ironically, I don't know if not to compare WCW to AEW. Again, I'm not an AEW hater. Like I come from the foundation that if a wrestler is going to go on AEW, such as, let's say, Adam Copeland, for example, I'll support him wherever he goes because I'm a fan of Edge / Adam Copeland. No different than CM Punk. If he's on AEW or wherever, I mean, he's an entertaining, charismatic wrestler or superstar, whatever you want to call him. So I'll support both promotions. There's, WWE, I like the storyline base as opposed to AEW is maybe more wrestling focused. But going back to what WCW and how their downfall happened, I kind of get a little bit of reminiscence from what Tony Khan is doing, where he's maybe a little bit more greedy. He's kind of a mark for himself in a sense. And while I'll give him all the credit in the world because I don't believe we would see a CM Punk in WWE today if it wasn't for AEW. And I don't believe we would see a Cody Rhodes in WWE today if it wasn't for AEW. I do believe Tony Khan kind of he's his own worst enemy in a lot of cases, and he's following some of the paths that led to WCW's failure when he's trying to run AEW. And that's just, my own opinion, respectfully.
I always thought that it was Dixie Carter that had that philosophy when they started putting her on TV as a heel. And it became apparent that they didn't really know what to do with her. And I guess when she took over that company from the Jarretts, that's kind of that logic right there that you were talking about with Tony Khan through Dixie Carter. And that kind of was the end of what was it, TNA and Impact Wrestling before I think they relaunched recently. But again, it's that concept that you mentioned about a promoter just letting it go further to where they shouldn't have gone to those kinds of boundaries.
100%. And just to give a shout out to Alfredo in the chat, like even he said too, to further expand on that, if it wasn't for TNA and ROH, WWE would have never gotten AJ Styles, Danielson, and Punk. That's absolutely true as well. And I didn't watch like ROH as far as Ring of Honor. TNA, I started to tune in maybe more during when Hulk Hogan came in there and things like that. That was kind of, I guess, where I was tuning in a lot, which good for them, right? Dixie Carter, I think, did a pretty good job. She had her flaws and faults, but she made it entertaining during that era. But that's another great point, that if it wasn't for TNA or Ring of Honor or a lot of these, these promotions that are considered subpar and irrelevant, then we wouldn't see a lot of what we see today. And that's exactly true. That's why I come from the viewpoint, like I'm not, what do you call them, brand cultists. I don't, just because I watch primarily WWE doesn't mean I'm going to hate on AEW or TNA or Ring of Honor, which I guess, well, Tony Khan owns AEW and Ring of Honor now anyway. But like I appreciate we need that competition because WWE wouldn't be where it was today. And the other thing you got to think of is Triple H. The guy already had a heart attack. I wish him nothing but extremely good health in the future. But do you think, Triple H is going to be around in the next 10 years? You'd hope he would be, but he's getting up there in age. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, is when you have these competitions like AEW and you're keeping WWE proverbially on their toes, we're lucky we have Triple H now, but when he goes away, who's going to come and replace him? And are they going to have the same understanding and the intellectual mindset of good creative booking? Triple H doesn't make all the right decisions, but my point is that, if there is no competition and once Triple H leaves, what's to say we don't go back to the Vince poor booking, the 24/7 title, the stupid little comedy, comedic factors, and we go back to just stupid television if there is no competition. Competition, and Tony Khan has made WWE have to produce better on-screen content, and that to me is really important, and I appreciate that. So I'll definitely support all promotions equally, regardless of what I watch primarily.
Yeah, we always need the alternative to change things up a bit. And if they go back to the Vince McMahon way of thinking, it's going to be a lot harder to watch WWE.
Well, 100%. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like we're spoiled in a sense, and it doesn't mean that Triple H is always making the right decisions. No, he's not. But at the same time, you cannot deny he has a good creative mind, way better than obviously Vince. Like Vince is way out of touch. Vince had his time in the past, but he's way out of touch. Vince doesn't understand what people want, or Vince doesn't care about what people want. So that's what I'm saying. We're very fortunate right now that not only do we have competition to keep WWE on their toes, and not only do we have other promotions to allow other talent like Cody Rhodes or like CM Punk to kind of redevelop themselves. I would say more or less Cody Rhodes was a perfect example, because I mean, Stardust was a complete failure and he was just a comedic factor. Cody Rhodes was able to reinvigorate and redevelop himself and now become the American Nightmare, whereas CM Punk again wouldn't be on television if it wasn't for AEW bringing him back anyway. But I'm saying, not only that, in order to keep the foundation of where we want wrestling to go today, we're lucky with Triple H, but when Triple H goes, we're at best lucky maybe 10 years. I hope it's longer that he sticks around, but after that, if you don't have competition, I don't think you're likely to find another creative booker that's going to have the same creative mind that Triple H does in today's era. I don't think you're going to be lucky enough to find that. So you need competition in order to make the next head of creative after Triple H want to continue to produce good on-screen television product.
Yeah, and to not go back to the old ways that didn't work, with Vince McMahon being out of touch with the constant rematches and too many titles and no divisions, and bringing people back from the past and pretending that they're still young. It's just, we can't go back to that ever again.
100%. I agree. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like we're spoiled right now, and it's kind of like, and again, we're talking about a little bit about Cena earlier. Now that Cena's no longer a regular on-screen talent, we hated him, he was shoved down our throats, but there is the aspect, even for anybody that didn't necessarily like Super Cena's on-screen persona, you still can't deny to some degree he is missed as a regular on the today's WWE product. I mean, we were lucky to have him for those couple of months when there was that actor strike or whatever was going on there, right? So it was kind of nice to have him back, but that's what I mean. We don't necessarily realize what we have until it's gone. I think that can apply to many sections of life, but not just wrestling. But I will say, yeah, we really need to enjoy while we have Triple H as the knighted head creator, according to the Endeavor or TKO, whatever they're calling themselves now. And hopefully he continues, because I'm really excited to see not only what a Royal Rumble will be like completely under Triple H's creative booking, but finally, I'm really excited to see what WrestleMania 40 will be like. Not only is it supposed to be one of the best WrestleManias, or it's crowned so far as the best WrestleMania. I know they say that all the time, but I'm really excited to see, with now Triple H officially in full creative control, what he is able to do with WrestleMania 40 completely under his full control.
Well, with them re-signing CM Punk and him indicating that he's going to be in the Royal Rumble and he wants a WrestleMania main event, I'm pretty sure we're getting him and Seth Rollins in the main event. My stream kind of cut out there. Seth Rollins and who in the main event? CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for WrestleMania main event.
Yeah, for sure. Main event night one, absolutely. I think that's where they're going, and this is really cool too, because before it's pretty predicting. You can predict who's going to win the Royal Rumble. This year, you have either Cena. We're talking about John Cena. You either have CM Punk winning in order to challenge Seth Rollins. You have the aspect of Cody Rhodes winning back-to-back Royal Rumbles. And you potentially still have the aspect of Gunther winning and challenging Seth Rollins. I mean, that's as far as, because Gunther was necessarily supposed to be, before CM Punk even reemerged back in Survivor Series, it was supposed to be Gunther. It was kind of what they were building between Gunther and Seth Rollins, but he could still be kind of that dark horse. And then the other aspect is, could it be CM Punk? If that's the case, if Gunther wins, then there's a pretty good chance, crazily enough, that then CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, because that rumor's still out there. I don't really know. I know that's far-fetched, but you just never know. So that's what I'm saying. Like, the unpredictability is huge, and I like that with this year's Royal Rumble, or rather, 2024's Royal Rumble. I'm calling this year's because we're damn well already 2024. We're only a couple of days away at this point, right? So,
Well, they're going to be stuck with a dilemma after WrestleMania because I'm hearing Roman Reigns is possibly going to be leaving and taking time off, and I'm wondering who's going to replace him as the top heel. He's been amazing.
I think they planted the seeds, and it won't happen right away, but I think they planted seeds for Solo Sikoa, especially when they mentioned that he's basically like the next in line, and they were doing that storyline a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, that they're really pushing Solo Sikoa. But the issue that I have with that is you need to get Solo to talk more. You need to, I understand he's like this enforcer gimmick, but you need to slowly transition out of that, which I think they've made a little bit of strides here and there, because you hear Solo talking in the last, month and a half, you've heard him say more than he's probably said his entire run while being a part of the Bloodline. He was completely stoic and silent. They're giving him little things to say here and there, but they need to develop more as a character instead of this silent, stoic enforcer, in order to make him believable as the next alleged and, well, according to Roman Reigns, the next in line to be the tribal chief after he leaves. They need to do further character development and promo development with Solo.
Yeah, I agree with that. He does need to talk more, but hopefully they can keep him away from any kind of silly comedy aspect that generally ruins somebody's career.
I agree. I think under Triple H, though, going back to talking about him, I think he's really done well for Solo, that I would not, I mean, we never know, I guess, but I do not believe Triple H would necessarily ruin the integrity or quality that he's built with Solo in order to then turn Solo into some comedic, kind of like what they did with Vladimir Kozlov, teaming him with Santino Marella. Vladimir was this super amazing Russian force that you just didn't want to mess with, and then they turned him into some drinking tea character with Santino Marella. Well, that completely ruined him, right? So I can't see personally Triple H doing the same thing with Solo after what they've invested in him so far. So I do have faith in Triple H that he will carry him in the right direction, kind of like what they're doing with Butch. You know, they're slowly trying to transition Butch into, well, what he was formerly known as. So like Pete Dunne. So I have faith that Triple H will do right by the talent that he has, and by Solo.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. I mean, at least we're not going to get somebody to get ruined and be put into a comedy angle. Like they took years ago, they took a talented wrestler like Lance Storm, and then they made him come to the ring dancing and in front of like this rap theme, and then he was just not taken seriously. And then that's what believed to be the end of Lance Storm's career.
Yeah, no, it's things like that were, I mean, it's sad, but that was kind of the Vince direction, is he would, for whatever reason, he just had this ideology where he would turn you into like a comedy character, or if for whatever reason he got bored of you, kind of like the proverbial toys in the toy box. He wanted to just basically, you're no longer fun to play with anymore, so let me just toss you and, I don't know, turn you into some ridiculous character with a ridiculous gimmick just to get some laughs. I mean, this is the same guy that, again, Vince laughed a lot and apparently was hysterically laughing at fart jokes or poop jokes. Like, this guy had this weird fetish and obsession with comedy, poop, and fart jokes. I don't know. That should kind of show you where his mindset was at. So, yeah.
Yeah, they used to do that with Natalia. They were starting to make her fart on camera and nobody took it seriously. And I felt so bad for her when she had to go through that.
Oh, yeah. It's like, come on here. I mean, we're like, what are we here? Are we like, are we adults, or are we just some, I don't even know what you would call it. Just, again, fart and poop jokes. Come on. I think you can do a little bit better than that, but that was Vince's mind, and that was what he wanted to stick with. So.
Yeah, it's probably no different than when they made Shayna Baszler run away from Alexa Bliss's doll. That really got me mad.
Oh, they've done so bad by Shayna, but Actually, speaking of Shayna, she's also rumored to win the Women's Royal Rumble in 2024. So this could potentially be, her way to finally get over or finally leave her mark. I was happy what Ronda did. Again, allegedly the story is Ronda wanted to put Shayna over on Ronda's way out, which was good. So, and I am a fan of Zoe Stark. I know maybe she doesn't have the greatest promo talent to some and whatnot, but I do believe there is potential for Zoe, and I do believe that she's trying a lot. So this team potentially with Zoe and Shayna, I hope they're not going to be a permanent tag team, because I think Shayna definitely could be main event caliber in the women's division, but it's just a matter of, again, progressing her, much like they're doing with Butch, aka Pete Dunne. You can't change them overnight, but you can slowly start to progress them so they become more believable, and that slow transition. And I'm hoping the Royal Rumble, if Shayna Baszler wins, will start to be that transition back to her being a real badass, and none of this nonsense comedic factor that she's kind of had that stigma with her for quite a while now.
Yeah, it's really insulting that they keep making her go through these tag teams, and they're trying to build her up as this intense killer. And she's got the ability to destroy anybody in a real fight. And she's someone that I would never mess with. And, they're just not utilizing her the way that they could. Because if she became a champion, then that would be really what they should have done 3-4 years ago when she came to the main event roster.
Well, they were on that path when they were feuding her. Talk about Shayna Baszler, when they were feuding her with Becky Lynch, but then they kind of turned focus. I don't know, it was because when Shayna Baszler bit Becky or something, and then instead of the feud, it turned into just Shayna Baszler biting Becky Lynch, and it took on kind of a new, I don't know, foundation for the feud for the worst. And then obviously Vince completely butchered that. And then Shayna, well, what was that? Was it after that fact? Then she teamed with Nia Jax, and then she did some other nonsense, and she just was never the same after that. But her prime year or prime time was when she was feuding with Becky Lynch, until that completely flopped, and her career as a result flopped from that point forward. But I do wish her the best in terms of succeeding, because I do think she has a lot of potential that just hasn't been tapped into as of yet, because she hasn't been given that proper creative direction. And I think Triple H is the guy to help reinvigorate Shayna Baszler's career in the WWE.
Yeah, definitely. She can do a lot. She can wrestle, brawl, cut savage promos, get a reaction. She's got everything that a champion should be.
100%. And it's not all about looks. It's not all about, like, there is a complete package deal. You can cut a good promo. Sure, maybe you have this look or whatever the case may be, but there's multiple areas. You just got to tap into what's working for a certain character. And Shayna does have a lot of untapped potential. Take Shinsuke Nakamura, for example. Okay, look what they've kind of done, cutting the backstage promos with the red lighting, and then now he's going after Cody Rhodes, and there's, was that storyline development and feud development there. They took his inability necessarily to cut good promos in English, and they just simply allowed him to speak his native language, but cut promos in his native language using some subtitles and creating a little bit of that mysterious pre-recorded backstage segment. Well, cool. You know what? That's worked for him. That's been great. And I think that's, again, reinvigorated Shinsuke Nakamura. So that's what I'm saying. Triple H, not so much as looking for his talent to have all of the skills to make like a complete package of a WWE superstar, but instead he's tapping into the talents that, or rather the skill set that his talents does have, and utilizing that in order to get them over, which that's great. I think that's something that Vince never was willing or able to do, and he just didn't have the smarts to do that. So that's why, again, Triple H were really spoiled, because he's not looking to create the perfect wrestler. He's working around the skills that the wrestlers he has do possess, and he's building upon that, which is really cool in my opinion.
Yeah, they got to do definitely a lot more of that. I mean, that would change WWE around for the better. They're slowly improving since Triple H took over, but they got a long way to go yet.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I don't even directly know if they've stated, like, they've said Triple H is knighted as the majority, like he has majority creative control, or what do they say, 99.9%. And if Vince is still hanging in the weeds or whatever, I mean, we were on the way for Triple H to be like kind of full creative and have control, but then Vince came back in and he messed that all up. So that's why I think this is a little bit slower of a progression for Triple H, like a full Triple H led WWE rather, because he kind of got steamrolled and overshadowed by Vince coming back after Vince snaked his way back into the company, right? So that's what I mean. I think hopefully this time around it's different, and yeah, it's a slower burn and a slower progression. But if give this a year with Triple H fully in control and Vince isn't having any impact on any storyline progression, I think we will definitely see lots of success going forward.
Yeah, they'll definitely turn around for the better. I mean, the best thing, as you said, Vince can stay away from the company and stop being so untrusting of the people that run it, because clearly he didn't want to step down and give it over to his family. And that really was what came back to bite him, because the older he got, the more senile he got, and he was making a lot of bad decisions. And it just ended up hurting WWE as a company rather than improve it with him stepping down.
Well, exactly. And unfortunately, that seems to kind of have been the case with Vince a lot in the last couple of years in particular, where he puts himself and just his ego over the benefit of the company. But that's why it's been said ad nauseum that it's never been about the success of the company. Vince could care less once he's passed away. He could care less what happens to his company. He just wants what he wants while he's alive and him having full control. He doesn't really care about his family taking it over or the longevity of his company. He wants to make his money, he wants to have full control, and he wants to play in his proverbial sandbox and not allow anybody else to have input. And that was Vince's downfall. And unfortunately, yeah, it's really sad to, it's pretty sad.
Yeah, he's also got a lot of blood on his hands from his years as a promoter. But I mean, him stepping away and being gone is the best thing for this company. But with time, it's going to get better now, and hopefully they can find someone to replace Triple H in the future. But as you said, it's going to be a lot harder to do, and that's going to be a problem down the road. But right now, they're looking pretty good, just taking it week by week and getting better little by little.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yep, that's all we can hope for is as wrestling fans. I mean, obviously, a lot of us can't watch the product or aren't as able to watch the product as much as, say, what we were when we were younger. But it's nice to relive a passion of watching, some good wrestling, some good old-fashioned wrestling when we have the time. So I wish continued success for WWE, continued success for AEW, and I'm going to enjoy the time that Triple H we have on board to continue his creative direction in order to give us some good on-screen television product.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm probably going to have to just take off here as I have some other obligations. But definitely, I'd love to do this again. Fan of YouTube, I appreciate you having me on the panel, and I want to take the time to thank all of the viewers in their comments section and for the comments and giving some topics of discussion when it comes to wrestling. And again, thank you again for allowing me on your panel to discuss wrestling. And
yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, definitely look forward to doing it again in the future.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, take care. If I wish everybody, if I don't talk to everybody before the new year, Happy New Year, Merry belated Christmas, or Happy Holidays, whatever you guys celebrated. And we will talk to you all later, and you all have a great day.
Take care.
Cheers.
So let's see the comments section here. Do you think Dodgers win World Series with Ohtani? I got to get back into that and watch that some more. I haven't really followed much of that. And let's see, in the next few years, I got to definitely get back into watching other stuff again. Like, my TV intake is not what it used to be. I've been focusing on just other things. But when I watch not just wrestling, but I do like horror films and I do video game uploading and stuff, like even that, as I've gotten older, is kind of like it's not as appealing as it used to be. Like, I can't sit in front of a TV like other people can and just, I can see a little bit of it throughout the day, but then I kind of got to get up and move around, and it's like maybe it's an age thing. I don't know. Got 3 people in here. And let's see. I could see that argument a little bit. I mean, social media, since its expansion, has really caused problems for a lot of things, not just sports, but like back in the day, for example, when we had wrestling, the internet was really starting to grow more with these websites reporting all these rumors and stuff from wrestling. And some say that it actually had a hand in destroying the value of WWE and these other companies because it gave away what was going to happen potentially with plans. Like, when you get up on Christmas and, you find out that your gift is pretty much partly open because you looked in the package. It's kind of like that logic. And social media as a whole just really became about exposing too much about wrestling and other stuff to where we were not really surprised the way we once were. And it kind of gives off stuff too much. And these companies end up getting hurt because they're trying to keep things, a secret, and it gets exposed. And these wrestling dirt sheets are all the same. They just want to expose. And they're not realizing that they do harm every time when they do that because it gives away the element of surprise. But I agree. I think that social media being expanded, and it has played a part in it. Don't forget Toys R Us, Kmart, Rite Aid, and Blockbusters ruined due to internet. Yep, I agree with that 100%. I also think that the internet expansion too is also what did it, because nobody wants to go and spend a truckload of money for a few movies to rent when they can just watch it online. And I actually stopped going to video stores because a lot of the stuff that they put in stores, they don't take care of their tapes the way they did. And then it became DVDs, and then Blu-ray took over. And by that point, it just felt like it just wasn't really the same. And that's one of the reasons I just stopped watching them, because now you can watch anything on like Netflix. You can watch on other websites, all these movies. You can even catch them on YouTube if you don't want to. That are some that are free, but there's other ones where you have to pay like for a subscription. COVID still a thing due to new cases. Yeah, that's sad. I've heard a little bit about that. Oh, excuse me. But I personally agree with your statement there. Like, social media has really just expanded, and it has like a downside to it, but a lot of things really are just coming and going out of existence. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. I mean, as much as we like social media, these websites, they intend to leak things out a lot more and more to where it's exposed. And it's just not as surprising when you go to watch like a WWE show or AEW or any kind of sporting event. So you already know what's going to happen when it's reported on the news and rumors aspect of it. And it just gets to the point where, you get it ruined and you're like, I don't want to see it, So I don't, it's kind of a 50-50 double-edged sword if you look at it. Gonna check this out here. God, I wish this internet would actually cooperate. It's finally stopping and raining here, so I should have no problems anymore with this kind of loading time. Yeah. Got 4 people in the room. But I'm going to try and get another chat done sometime tomorrow, hopefully. I mean, it's my last day in the city tomorrow, and then I head home on Saturday. But I was supposed to do more videos, but my internet was kind of like lagging, and we've had some rain come through here. But hey, I'll take the rain over the snow any day, because snow causes power outages and stuff, and it's just really annoying. It's just a gigantic mess. But if I can do a live chat tomorrow, I mean, I definitely will do that. But anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Maybe if I have time later, I'll do another chat. I don't know, but it'll definitely be tomorrow. Going to try and do some videos too, and just enjoy the last of my time here before I head home. And hopefully the weather gets nicer out. So thanks everybody for coming and watching this chat, and I'll talk to you guys later, and take care.